Welcome to Rocky Broad Solar, where we encourage you to make the current flow. On today's episode, we're going to go over the age-old question, is off-grid solar really worth it? Let's get into it. So there's three main types of solar photovoltaic systems. One, that would be off-grid solar. This is where your home is not connected to the utility grid. Two is a grid tied with battery backup, also known as a hybrid inverter. This gives you the benefits of both the utility grid and off-grid capabilities all in one system. Lastly, there's grid-tied only systems. These systems are created only to offset your utility bill, and they do not provide backup power. Let's get into the details of each system and see which one is right for you. So off-grid solar. This is used on homes that, for one reason or another, cannot receive power from the utility grid. There are several reasons why this may occur. One common one is it's in a very remote, difficult to access location, and there's not utility lines close by. And oftentimes, the utility company might quote you tens of thousands of dollars or even more just to get utility power to your home. In that case, an off-grid system might be the right choice for you. Secondly, if someone's built a structure that has not been permitted or inspected, a lot of people these days, you're getting into the tiny home movement, or for whatever reason, you've went and bought some land somewhere, built a structure, you want to now get power to it. But it turns out you never got it permitted, never got it inspected, and to do so retroactively can be difficult or impossible depending on your local AHJ or authority having jurisdiction. Lastly, a lot of times off-grid solar is used for mobile vehicles like a camper trailer or an RV or a boathouse or something of that nature. The living in a van or a bus, all these things are getting more and more common, especially with the rising cost of living. People that want to look for sort of a different way of life, a lot of times utilize these things as a more affordable way to live a flexible lifestyle. Unfortunately, when you're in a structure or a home that moves locations, you need power oftentimes when you don't have access to utility hookups. And in that case, an off-grid system is right for you. So some of the pros of an off-grid system is you can get power in locations that you can't really get it otherwise, or where it's too expensive to get power, as we discussed previously. Another pro of an off-grid system is that they don't require permits and inspections. If you're off the grid, you're not connected to the grid, you can live in really any structure that's unpermitted and uninspected, and most people just install these off-grid systems without any permits or inspections anyways. And lastly, it's self-sufficiency. It's you are not dependent on a massive utility monopoly in order to live your life. And so that's really just a freeing concept that a lot of people really embrace, is just self-sufficiency. Some of the cons of an off-grid system are, you don't have that reliable utility power. So most Americans are used to living a certain lifestyle these days, and that is kind of having all electric appliances, a big heating and air conditioning heat pump maybe, on-demand power, anytime you want it, any time of the year, for as long as you want it, and really not ever sacrificing anything. And with an off-grid system, they come with sacrifices in most cases. Unless you have an unlimited amount of money to just splurge on the latest and greatest and most technology, most people that are living off-grid really have to conserve their energy and plan out their systems. So that means, in the worst part of the year, the worst weather conditions and the worst part of the year, you need to have your system sized to be able to handle your needs. So that's oftentimes wintertime, maybe there's snow on the panels, or just the sun's low in the sky. You're not getting that that solar gain that you get in the spring and summertime. And maybe, you know, you have some bad weather, you're not really getting solar gain for days on end. You need a battery bank that's going to last for days. And so when you're talking things like water heating, heating and air conditioning, cooking on an electric oven, these things aren't generally used in an off-grid scenario. In most cases, people are gonna use a separate source of fuel for their heating needs, whether that be cooking, water heating, or just heating your living area, as well as air conditioning. So for off-grid customers, a lot of them go propane or natural gas or firewood in that case. And for air conditioning, a lot of times it's just the age-old fan. So next is the grid-tied with battery backup system, also known as a hybrid system. So this system's kind of the best of both worlds. You can utilize the utility grid for the vast majority of the time when it's operating as normal, but when the power goes out, you have batteries and backup power to power your home loads. Now, a lot of the advantages of the hybrid system are really that you get to kind of live that normal American lifestyle the vast majority of the time, have unlimited access to reliable, relatively cheap power from the utility company. You know, depending on your utility, that power can be, you know, costlier than others, and that really just depends on what part of the country you're in and what utility company you're working with. But in general, utility power is a reliable, cheap form of electricity. Now, with the backup power, you kind of have the ability to choose either whole home backup or partial home backup. So whole home backup means every load in your home, every circuit breaker is backed up by the batteries. And so that means when the power goes out, you can power any load in your home that you normally would. So the advantage of that is already stated. You know, you've already got all the loads that you normally would. You can kind of pick and choose what you use. A disadvantage of whole home backup is a lot of times you're backing up large, heavy loads that can really draw your battery bank down quickly. And oftentimes in an outage, you know, you may not want to use those loads so that you can utilize your battery power for more important things. So, you know, the big disadvantage of a whole home backup is when the power goes out, everything kicks on. Say your heating or air conditioning was running full tilt when the power outage occurred, and you don't notice that the power went out. I mean, it flips over within milliseconds, and maybe if you don't get a notification on your app or whatever the case may be, you know, that heating and air conditioning could just keep running, draining down your battery bank. And before you know it, you could be left with some dead batteries where, you know, now all of a sudden you don't even have lights and outlets or your refrigerator. So partial home backup is another option. With partial home backup, you're basically picking your critical loads. So you're going to take a separate sub panel, move over those critical loads that you want backed up by the battery in the event of an outage into your critical load sub panel. Most people for critical loads are going to choose the necessities. That's lights, outlets, microwave, internet, TV, you know, your basics, your low usage loads. If you're in an area that uses a well for water, obviously you're going to want your well pump backed up. But, you know, just depending on the size of your partial home backup and your situation, you could throw in the water heater and some other appliances, but generally you're avoiding the you know, the large heat pumps or large loads that are really going to drain down that battery bank quickly. Another pro of either a grid tied or a grid tied with battery backup system is you can program these systems to offset your utility bill. So unlike an off-grid system, if your batteries are charged and you're not using loads and the sun is up, your panels are basically just going to shut down until there's actually a load that can utilize that power. With a grid-tied system or a grid-tied with battery backup, you're going to send that excess power out to the utility grid, and in most cases your utility is going to be giving you credits for that power that you can utilize at a later time or at a worse time of year for the power you're bringing in. So both grid tied and grid tied with battery backup can be set to offset the utility bills. Now, grid tied with battery backup has more capabilities. So for utilities that charge time of use rates, this is when one time a day power is more expensive than other times a day. Generally, that grid tied with battery backup or even just a grid tied with batteries for arbitrage are used. So that means when utility power is cheap, you're using utility power and you're letting your solar panels charge the batteries. And then when utility power is expensive, you are utilizing your batteries or your solar power above all else and using the utility grid as a last resort. So the third option for solar for your average homeowner is your grid tied only system. And one of the main benefits of this system is it's cheap. You know, if you're a homeowner paying someone else to install solar on your home, you're connected to the grid. The main reason why you're buying this system is to offset your utility bill. Oftentimes in the long run, again, depending on your specific scenario, utilizing a grid-tied solar system over time is cheaper than being connected to the utility grid. Utility rates for power are constantly rising, and that's just a payment that you're going to continue to make for the length of your existence, where if you buy a grid-tied solar system, you're sort of locking in your rate. You know exactly what you're going to be paying for the next 25 to 30 years. The main con of a grid-tied only system is when the power goes out, your power goes out. Your solar panels, your solar inverter, everything just shuts down and it waits for the utility grid to come back on. The main reason for that is safety, and that's for utility workers. It basically, you need to, if you're going to have battery backup, you need to disconnect from the grid so that if utility workers are out working on the utility lines, there's no way that you're going to discharge power and electrocute someone on a line that they think is de-energized. So, battery technology is constantly evolving, and in the last 10 years, it's amazing how far we have really come. 10 years ago, pretty much all batteries were utilizing lead-acid batteries. They needed venting to off-gas. You needed to check electrolyte levels. They would go dead within 5 to 10 years. And really, it's just an old, outdated technology. And in today's day, as in 2024, no one has any reason to ever use a lead-acid battery again. So the lithium battery technologies are what's kind of taken over. And these batteries have a lot of greater advantages than the old technology. So the newer batteries these days, every year that passes by, they're getting higher and higher powers and longer warranties. They can handle heavier loads for a longer amount of time. And as more competitors enter the market, the space is getting more and more competitive. So that is driving the cost down, and it's fueling innovation in the home battery market. Now, that is one great aspect of capitalism, is that kind of competition is just driving innovation and reducing costs. And that's what we're seeing in the solar and battery market today. And that is what is going to fuel the takeover of solar and batteries over the outdated utility grid market. So, is off-grid solar really worth it? Well, that depends on your specific scenario. In most cases, if you're already hooked to the utility grid or you have easy access to the utility grid, the answer is probably going to be no. Yes, solar and batteries are worth it, and utilizing that grid maintains the ability to be flexible, live a normal American lifestyle, and provides a kind of a cost-effective form of electricity. Now, if you live in one of those locations where I described before, you know, you're living in a camper, a school bus, a van, a boathouse, in some remote location where you don't have utility power, off-grid solar is definitely worth it. You know, these systems have been around for the past 40 years. They are tried and true. The technology works. It's just a matter of sizing the system for your specific needs and really planning out your loads in your home and how you're going to kind of conserve and make that work for your unique scenario. If you gain value out of this content, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, press the notification bell, or leave a comment down in the description below. All those things greatly increase the success of my channel and cost nothing for you. If you're a homeowner living in the US looking for a hassle-free, zero-cost quote to put solar or battery backup on your home, go down in the description below, click on the Rocky Broad Solar Intake form, fill out a few details about your specific scenario, and I'll get back to you within a few days. If you're more of a do-it-yourselfer, go ahead and check out our affiliate links down in the description below. They have some great solar equipment suppliers, some of the best that I've found in the industry, and by using those affiliate links, you're helping to support the channel at no additional cost to you, or in some cases even at a discounted cost. As always, thanks so much everyone for watching. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you, and until next time, take care.